I see a Budweiser. Go ahead and hold it up.
Yes.
That was the biggest clue.
Yes, right
Doing
there.
it for Dale.
Man, it's so many gimmicks, right? I feel like they're making it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, a lot of people, you get polarizing opinions on DRS.
I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but sometimes the effort, it's all about the boys. You know, like, hey, you know, life sucks sometimes, and you need the boys.
iRacing kind of always has a tendency to kind of buff
Yes.
the new cars just a little bit. I'm not going to go on record saying it's because they want people to spend money on their platform and buy all the new content.
Confirmed.
But
Yes.
but
We are live for the first time on Slow Motion Broadcasting with the FF Weekend Warriors. We're at Sebring this weekend. It's going to be a blast. I saw a little bit of rain here in the practice session, but we'll get to that here in 1 second. My name is Adam Thompson. I'm joined in the booth by Randall McGrew.
With these three going right at it, we see you're getting really, really squirrely. There,
Oh, no!
Some contact. Oh no! Jurg and Antonio, the two Masters leaders, both with issues and now dropping down the order.
There's a dicing through the curbs. Our lead two. As that's Instaman just slossing it up the inside through McIntyre there. Beautifully done by the Icelandic driver as there's a big incident happened behind somewhere. Gonzaga losing a lot of places back.
Almost touching at that point. They're around there heading into the closing stages of the track. Not quite there yet. Heading through what I'm calling the horseshoe, but let's not get into my drawing skills at this point. Nothing but clear track ahead of them at this point, so no one should be able to interfere in that battle. Side by side, nearly had contact there. That's going to put Kabanka on the inside for this next hairpin. This could be what decides it, and he's gone right on the outside, actually trying to cover off the car. I do wonder if Barry is going to be close enough to potentially slipstream. They've got 2 corners left to go. This is penultimate one now. Barry right up close, 0.3 of a second. I'm not sure it's going to be close enough, 0.2 of a second. He's got to keep his foot on that loud pedal. Catches a little bit of a curve, but has Kabanka done it? Barry going to the inside, and Kabanka gets it.
Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 8 of the season, coming to you today from Brands Hatch. My name is Ron Maunz, and alongside me, working the comms and the cams, is Daniel Zippy Salmon. And now, Zippy, we're rocking up to possibly the shortest track we'll be running at all season long. Lap times are quick, and they're going to be quick, much quicker than some of the other tracks that we've run at thus far this season, and will be running at throughout the rest of the season. But that shouldn't be a knock at all, because I have a feeling that we're in for a really good race today.
Oh, it's definitely going to be a very fun race. One, the chosen run. It's definitely going to be. Sorry, man. It's going to be that kind of day, I guess. But it's certainly going to be a fun track. I have had the pleasure of being here in real life, so that is, it hits home for me. It's good to see. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely the shorter layout, as you were saying. It's the Indy circuit version, I believe, is the correct one. But one thing I really, really love about this track, whenever I've been there, is that, I was able to go through all the pits and stuff like that, and this wasn't like it was like amateur racing and stuff. It was like, these were full-on like Ferraris, F430s and stuff like that. This was like heavily invested people, and, it was absolutely fantastic that the track was, so open to that. But certainly for me, my favorite turn has got to be turn 1.
Oh yeah, turn 1 is a track that, well, a corner on this racetrack that we're kind of talking about a little bit before the start of this broadcast about how really the iRacing, as much as iRacing is a brilliant software, it's not really something that gives turn 1 justice. You're saying that's just about a 3-story drop coming out of that section. It's a real tricky corner to try and get right, and if you get it a little bit off, you're going to be in for a world of trouble. So I think that's probably going to be a very good corner to keep our eyes on. Only 5 in total around the layout that we are going to be using today. As I mentioned in my open, it is one of the shortest tracks that we're going to be running all throughout this season. It's quite fitting that we're just off the back of a race at Road America 1 week ago, which that track I believe is about 4 miles long. I should know this since I'm an American, but that track is still very long. Lap times were around about 2.5 minutes long, so that lap was pretty much as far away from this racetrack as you could possibly get, but still a wonderful ride in the world of motorsports, and these drivers in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors going to be enjoying that 1.2 mile long 6-turn track, despite the fact iRacing really judges it as only having 5 corners. It's still a wonderful ride, so I'm not sure what was lost up there in communication. I think we will do a track guide here in a couple of moments, Zippy. I feel like I'll pass the reins off to you to give this track guide since you've been to this track in real life. An historic one as well, but it's also going to produce some pretty epic racing.
Well, definitely. It's, I haven't been to as many racetracks as I should have been. Certainly, as I appreciate you're much younger than me, Ron, but the biggest thing I'll say, my advice to my younger self, and I'm not saying that you're my younger self, I don't wish that upon anybody, but, get out, see the world, and as you can see here, this is exactly what Jorg Manny's doing right now as he heads down into turn 1. It is about a 3-story drop going through that turn, ladies and gentlemen, as they head under that Carlo Bridge into what I believe goes, off memory, is Druids. You definitely want to try and get a good exit there. That curb can be quite slippery, and it's the same deal here. Very, very generous amounts of runoff available just here. You can see Jorg using all of that track. Now, as they head down here, it is like a little bit of a chicane. Usually on the full layout, you would head through those cones, but in this case, that is not the case. Long right-hander. You can see Jorg sliding the car. A little bit of correction there. It's definitely not going to be one of his... Yeah, well held. Definitely not going to be one of his faster times, but certainly maybe a little bit of showboating as he brings it across the start-finish line.
Yeah, it is a really busy lap around this racetrack. It has existed pretty much ever since Brands Hatch was first built, all the way back in the 50s. Really, it is the original layout outside of the hairpin of Druids, which was added in about 3 years after the track was originally constructed. But this originally, well, it was originally just called the Brands Hatch Circuit. Then they added in the extension, which makes up the Grand Prix layout that we have today. Wasn't originally called the Indy Circuit, though, as it is called now. That name was kind of tacked onto the track all the way back in 1978 when the USAC IndyCar Series ran here for a one-off race that ended up being won by Rick Mears, if my memory serves me correctly. So it's a very historic track, despite the fact that it is called Indy. It was used by IndyCar only twice in very different eras of the sport, 1978 and 2003, but despite that, this track is an absolutely wonderful ride, and as I mentioned, producing some very quick lap times. Jorg Manny certainly very quick in this qualifying session as he's still sitting on the provisional pole in front of Tufts in P2 and Barry in 3rd, so Manny looking to bring some heat.
Well, it's good to see Jorg Manny is back as well. Certainly, it's been a rough couple of weeks for the guy, so I'm pleased to see him in. And not only that, he's there in P1. So certainly, that little bit of downtime, he's come back, and he is absolutely on it today. Nearest competition for him is going to be Degassis, who's back currently in 9th. So, I tell you what, Ron, we should probably do the championship standings at some point. Let's get that done, actually.
You just took the words out of my mouth there, Zippy. Let's talk about these championship point standings because it's been an up and down fight, mainly in the Spec 1 category, the top class, however you want to refer to it as the Spec 1 category, has produced a pretty interesting and compelling championship fight thus far. The Brit James Berry, the reigning Spec 1 champion here in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors, leads it currently 506 points on the board in front of Michael McConnell in 2nd, Kevin Adrian, the Mexican, in the number 10 car, currently slotted in 3rd, Jason Green and Daniel Tuff's going to round out your top 5. Barry has been very quick thus far this season. He didn't win last time as it was Maurizio Nazelli winning, but I don't believe he is going to be running here. Spec 2, on the other hand, bit of a different story. Josh Wilkie SMB's very own, has been incredibly dominant all throughout this season. He's at the front at the moment, 513 points on the board. Bill Walker slot in second at 369. So Wilkie just incredibly dominant thus far in this season. It's made my notes a little bit easier to make because I always write down the winners in each category every single week. I pretty much haven't had to change Spec 1 over the past, Spec 2, my apologies, over the past few weeks. So Josh, looking to try and continue that streak of dominance in the final 6 races of this season. Andrew Love, Paul Jackson, and Dana Bowes rounding out your top 5 in the Spec 2 category. And moving on to the Masters class, it's a little bit more cut and dry this class because we have seen a little bit of inconsistency in terms of the drivers participating at, but we got a dogfight on our hands between Brad Cathcart and Jorg Mani. Cathcart, the Australian, at the front, 374 points on the board compared to Mani's 367. So not a whole lot in it between those two. It's really the closest championship fight, with Jim Brewster about 57 points back of Mani in P2. Looks like it's just going to be those two battling for the championship, and that's going to be a real good storyline to follow all throughout the rest of the season.
Well, definitely some very, very close competition there happening in the standings. Very, very proud of Wilkie as well. And actually, I was wondering where he is at, and I checked in with him. He knows the race is going on. He just has to deal with a couple of errand spurts, but we will be seeing him back for the Spec Race of Fords. But actually, let's have a quick look through here as well. Obviously, we've got James Barry. Pick a driver there. I'll tell you what, I've got one. Let's talk about this gentleman here. Oh dear, bad timing.
Let's talk about it.
As we go on, he's just coming back on. I'm sorry, Stevie.
Beautiful time to switch over to the series admin, Stevie Ray. A little off-track excursion, trying to run the rallycross line, heading through turn number 1 and 2 on this lap, but he's currently qualified in 15th as it stands at the moment in the 911 car. Let's see if he can pull a better qualifying time in the final few minutes of this qualifying session. Usually with about a minute and a half left on the clock, we'd usually think, oh yeah, this is going to be it. These drivers have no time left to go in this qualifying session. The lap times are only 48 seconds long, so really a whole lot of time for these drivers. Gotta say, a driver who I've never really seen in the Weekend Warriors world of, Brandon Rosenborough. He's currently at the front. Roseborough, my apologies. There's an N there that I just tacked onto it, but Brandon Roseborough, he's currently on the provisional pole, jumping in front of Jorg Mani. So I think the newcomer in the 55 car is showing a little bit of speed.
Now, I have got some wonder as well. Is this a Brandon who I'm thinking of? Because if it is... No, my apologies. I'm thinking of a Canadian. I commentated an F1200 series before Formula V's, and it actually had a real-life prize. And this guy called Brandon, and I'm sure it was Brandon R. I can't remember his last name, but he absolutely obliterated it. He literally won every race and got to drive the real car. So I'm wondering if it's the same guy, but he was Canadian and this guy is American, going off the flag. But the iRate, I'm sure they were both around 7K, so I may have to look into that for my own curiosity's worth. But let's see if Stevie can improve. He's currently sat in P16 overall. Has he going to move up? Currently 49. No, he's about a tenth of a second slower that lap.
And as Stevie doesn't improve, the game of leapfrog at the front continues. Roseborough jumping in front of Mani after Mani jumped in front of him. So the game of leapfrog between those two certainly continuing for the front 2 positions in this race that we have coming up. Go try and battle for the front row and battle for the pole. Roseborough making his season debut. May not be a series debut, but a season debut to be sure. Mani, a Weekend Warriors staple and a Weekend Warriors veteran as well. So he's currently in second. Roseborough has the gumption over him as it stands at this point in time. Let's see if it's another improvement for the driver of the 55 car coming across the line a couple of moments time. Will he improve on his 48.130 across the line now? Is it an improvement from him? It is not. So Mani, I'm curious where he is out there on the racetrack right now. He's still out there about to cross the line. Is it an improvement from Jorg to jump back to the pole position, or is he going to have to settle for P2 across the line now? And it's not an improvement from Mani, so he's going to have to settle for second. Tuss, meanwhile, putting in a pretty good lap time. It was not an improvement from him, but he's currently in third, and Barry going to be starting in fourth. So James Barry, the championship leader in the Spec 1 category, off the back of a very hard fight between himself and Maurizio Nazelli just 1 week ago at Road America, looking to try and continue the streak of dominance he's had all throughout this season, and a win on his home turf would probably be a fantastic way to kick off the final few races of the season.
Well, definitely. I mean, a win is certainly something that we're all chasing. I know I went to do a official race last night, and yeah, it did not go to plan. It's fair to say. I ended up, it was a low strength of field, so it must be low because I was like supposed to finish in third or fifth, and ended up had a car spin in front of me, and I basically plowed through the guy, nowhere to go, and yeah, and then on the way back after the fast repair, this guy went and literally cut me off and wrecked the car. So I'm hoping for better quality action here. Actually, you know what, Ron? It made me appreciate the Weekend Warriors even more. But tell you what, let's get this grid on the way there, Ron.
Yeah, let's do it. Here is the starting grid for this race. A little bit smaller of a grid than we usually see in the Weekend Warriors world. Maybe the time change here in the U.S. Catching some people out. Certainly caught me out earlier on today. But nevertheless, an American is going to be on the front row. That being Brandon Roseborough in the 55 car. He's going to be joined on the front row by the Masters driver of Jörg Mani, Daniel Tufts, and James Berry going to complete an all-Brit second row. Then we have Jason Green starting this race in the 5th position. Kevin Adrian in 6th. Alan Degas is going to be the second of the Masters drivers starting this race in 7th. Michael McConnell going to be starting in 8th. Bill Walker in 9th. Julian Ditchburn, the Canadian, going to round out your top 10. Jeff Jacobson in 11th. Brad Cathcart starting this race in 12th. Another Masters driver, gotta say Walker, going to be starting at the front of the Spec 2 drivers in 9th. Anyways, looking outside of the top 12, we've got Paul Jackson and Daniel Verone starting this race in 13th and 14th. Stevie Ray and Michelle Lynn in 15th and 16th. Gary Walbott and Russell Telker in 17th and 18th. Chris Murakami and Kurt Nunez going to round out your top 20, and that just about does it from the grid. Gotta say Murakami and Kurt Nunez are not out there on the racetrack at this point, so they have not taken to the grid and will possibly not even take the start of this race, so not sure if they are going to be with us here today, but you can see the pace lap beginning. And this is going to be a really compelling day of racing action from the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. 48-second long lap times, a track where you really have no room to rest at all. I feel like mental fatigue may be a big thing that a lot of these drivers have to deal with, just trying to keep a calm head on their shoulders.
That's definitely something, you know, when you think about racetracks and racetracks that you tend to prefer, it's something that's often not really thought about, Ron. It's like, so the best example I can give of that is like at Spa. After you've gone through Eau Rouge and done all of that, you've got a little bit of time, you can have a drink, you can just, you know, cool your jets and you can get back to it. Sebring as well, you got a straight on the back, but this is one of those tracks where you don't really have that. I mean, you're going to be shifting up through and you're still going to be accelerating. I don't think you'll quite reach the top speed of these cars, but then you're heading down into turn 1 and you've got to be so on your game at this track. Not really, while there is runoff, you know, that the room for error is very finite.
Yeah, you got no room to run or hide around this old school racetrack with old school runoff area. I think we're going to get some old school racing as well. That pace car's down pit lane. The field is now in the hands of our front row sitters, waiting for that green flag to come out, which it has now. The drivers are on their way. Beautiful start from Roseborough. He's going to be leading them into turn number 1. Look at Tufts and Mani side by side, heading downhill into turn number 1. Look at James Berry. Maybe going to try and get a move done around the outside, off into Druids. Battle last late breakers between the two Brits. Who is going to prevail in this fight? Will it be the championship leader of Berry, or was it going to be the challenger of Tufts? Side by side still looks like they single file out, heading downhill into turn number 3 for the first time. You can see him using as much of the runoff area as they can. Don't want to be too careful with that though, because you'll lose out on a lot of time, but if you're too aggressive with it as well, you're going to pick up a slowdown and be in for a world of trouble, especially around a racetrack like this. Touching back on the point, Murakami and Nunez not taking the start, but 18 drivers did. One of them being our pole sitter, Brandon Roseborough, who's going to be leading them around that start finish, not so straight away to complete the first lap. Mani in P2, Tufts in 3rd, Berry and Green going to round out your top 5, and Kevin Adrian maintaining the top 6, maintaining the same spots that they had ever since the beginning of the race.
Well, I do find when you get tracks like this, Ron, it gets so incredibly tight. I mean, even just looking at the qualifying, absolutely just shreds of time, Ron, just separating these drivers. And you can see here Daniel Tufts demonstrating, as is Jörg Mani, just how much of that track he can use. And these guys, the biggest thing as well, you're going to want to try and stay ahead, with the car ahead of you. You know, as much as you want to scrap, you really got to weigh up the pros and cons. As it looks like Manny there making a slight error, and Tufts absolutely able to capitalize. It looks like he's going to try and send it up on the inside, with James Berry is right behind him as well.
Yeah, Berry going to be applying some pressure in this fight. Looking at them side by side, heading down into turn number 1. Tufts going to get that move done. Mani in 3rd, Berry running in the 4th position. as it stands at the moment, but these drivers still battling as hard as they possibly can. Monty just a small little wiggle through turn number 5, and it's going to cost him out in that P2 spot.
Well, there's battles happening throughout the field. You can see Kevin Adrian, he's looking to try and make a move on the regular here. It's Jason Green, number 2. JG2. It's only because we've got 2 Jason Gs here, ladies and gentlemen. Jason Grider and Jason Green. And it looks like Kevin Adrian, that Motor Racing Checklist, Motor Racing Academy, competitor, he is keen and doing everything he can to try and give it to get that 5th position away from JG. But you got to wonder as well, where there is going to be a pit stop, how hard do you want to fight? You can see James Barry there applying a lot of pressure to the back of Jorg Manny.
Yeah, these drivers are going to start to battle here in the not-too-distant future. 2 heavy hitters in this series. Monty, a fantastic driver in the Masters category, looking to try and grab a Masters championship. Barry, on the other hand, the Spec 1 driver, looking to try and grab back-to-back Formula Ford Spec 1 championships. Both of these drivers at the top of their game, trying to battle as hard as they can for a final podium spot. The real question is, which one is going to be the one to get that move done in the most commanding fashion? Gotta say, Brandon Roseborough getting off to a pretty good start. He still extended that gap to himself and Daniel Tufts, now to about 0.6 of a second. So the front 4 beginning to spread out a teeny tiny bit. Really, the top 6 starting to spread out a little bit. I have a feeling Kevin Adrian may be feeling a little bit of pressure here in the not too distant future. Certainly applying some pressure to Green as we're covered by about 0.3 of a second.
Definitely some very close racing going on indeed, Ron, and that is the name of the game. We're going to have a look at some other battles as well. It looks like Alan Degassis and Julian Ditchburn, these guys are in a little bit of a fight. Ditchburn, I can say, is actually quite local to me. He's about an hour away in a very picturesque place in Nova Scotia. And actually, speaking of that, you know, random off topic, Ron, but you know when you get like the window screen that says, okay, here's the pretty picture, where is it? You know that bit? Like when you go to log in and stuff?
Yes.
Well, I actually turned on my laptop last night and it had Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia, which was awesome because I was literally there a few weeks ago. So, just random fact, but certainly me and Julie are very lucky to live in one of the more scenic parts of Atlantic Canada.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I feel like if I ever turned on my PC and saw something from Center City, Philadelphia, I would be absolutely gobsmacked because the chances of that happening, that's the chances of finding a living T-Rex. But anyways, Barry and Monty have swapped positions. Barry now running in the final podium position. Monty dropping down to 4th. So Jorg Monty, despite the fact he hasn't gotten off to the greatest start in the world, still running in the Masters lead as it stands at the moment. Alan Degassis, who we can see a little bit farther up the road compared to this man, Julian Ditchburn, is still running 2nd of the Masters drivers. And here's a replay to see that side-by-side action. Monty maybe not having another good run through turn number 5, leaving him prey to go for a move, for his competitors to go for a move that is on him down into turn number 1. Barry on that inside line, Monty on the outside. That's such a good overtaking opportunity for these drivers, but you have to be precise with it, and you also need to rely on your competitor just realizing, hey, I gotta back out of this. This is going to end in disaster if I try and force this issue a little bit more. But that was still pretty well executed move from Barry to slip his way up into 3rd. Meanwhile, looking at this fight involving Ditchburn, Degassis, McConnell, and Adrian a little bit farther up the road. You can also see Jason Green in the midst of that as well. I feel like I may have jinxed Degassis because as I was giving that little spiel about the fact that he was still running 2nd of the Masters drivers, I feel like he's lost out on a little bit of time in the past few moments in the 904 car.
Well, he's definitely under a lot of pressure for the baseline racing team. I've got to say, his picture that he's put for a profile definitely gave me a little bit of a giggle there. The old-fashioned. Actually, that's the thing, Ron. I don't know. I don't know if ageist is the word, but I don't know if you would have ever seen stuff like that, where you would have got like the blocks of, you know, color and stuff like that, or you know, if you turn the TV on, you just get the white noise. Like, forgive me if I'm wrong, but like, I'm realizing at this point that I'm older than I realize, I guess, if that makes sense.
And as we see that move from Ditchburn on Degassis hang down into turn number 2, I have seen the color bars in the past, do not get me wrong. See, the thing is, as much as I am 19, knocking on the door of 20 in about a month and a half's time, I was also poor as a kid. The first ever TV that I had in the house was a Sony Trinitron, so it puts you into perspective what kind of technology we had around the house. Here's a good tech story, so you may get a kick out of this, because I know we've talked a little bit about you upgrading your PC. My dad's PC downstairs in the dining room is still the same PC that he's had since I was a kid. It is a Windows XP It is
Wow.
the 64-bit professional edition, so I believe it was one of the
That's a
last
good one.
XPs ever released, but it still got released in, I think, either late 2004 or 2005. I was less than a year old when that thing was made, and my dad is still somehow using it actually, I say using it. It is still in the house. It has been completely unplugged. I think that thing is finally conked out. But the fact that he was still running on Windows XP up until earlier on this year is nothing short of an absolute and unbridled miracle.
Yeah, definitely, that would certainly upset some people in the tech side. Myself, I think that's fantastic. You're getting more life out of a product. It saves it from landfill. I actually grew up with Windows XP, but let's just see how Kevin Adrian is doing right now, because there's a few battles going on throughout the field. Actually, Ditchburn still appears to be applying the most pressure. He made it past the gases, and now it looks like McConnell is in his crosshairs. As that looks like, I believe that's Michelle Lynn, who's just letting a little bit of the lap traffic go by as it stands.
And you can see this absolute massive pack of race cars. Michelle Lynn in the midst of that, not really of her own doing. I think there may have been an incident earlier on that, or she's already come into the pits that led to her losing out on a little bit of time. Looking through right now, she has come down pit lane, spent 13.2 seconds stopped in her box and 40.2 down pit lane. So Michelle Lynn, one of the first drivers in this race to make that decision to come down into pit lane. These drivers will have to worry about a pit stop at some point, but at this point in time, most of these drivers not really worrying about pit stops at this point. They are going out for all-out glory and battling as hard as they can. Barry last on by just set the fastest lap of the race at a 48.143. So James Barry running in P3 at this point as the front four still covered by barely any air. They are spreading out a teeny tiny bit though, so I think as much as these drivers may start to think about pit strategy, they're still going to be pushing it.
Absolutely, and then, I don't know, in this kind of scenario, like, if you're getting held up by the pack, you want that early pit stop, you want to try and get into that clean air, but however, if you find that the pack is helping pull you along, very different scenario, and we're not at the point where, you can time where you're going to come out, especially where this is such a tight circuit, quite a small layout, it really is a case of Russian roulette on where you're going to reappear. I mean, right now, there is some clear spots on the track. So let me put the track map up, let's have a look. So yeah, you can see there is a large chunk of it free. If you end up in that could be very, very beneficial right now. However, is it going to pay off? Do you need that draft?
I think at a racetrack like this, in cars like these, the draft may not be too important. I think the main thing is just having clean air in front of you so you don't kind of get dragged into a mistake. These race cars don't have a whole lot of downforce to them, so there's not a whole lot of dirty air. However, in a pack like this, especially if you're in the position that Michael McConnell finds himself in, with Ditchburn and DeGassis right behind him, and Green and Adrian right in front, you can find yourself in the position from feeling more pressure from the cars behind, or feeling like you need to keep up pace with the cars in front, and could just lead you to making a silly mistake that can really hurt your race a lot more than pushing it a little bit more could help your race. So at this point in time, I feel like as much as these drivers may be thinking about where they come out in terms of the pits, I think it's less about dirty air and more about just the mindset that these drivers have to have dealing with a race like this, where outside of the small little run between 3 and 4 that some of these drivers are about to tackle right now. Let's ride on board Ditchburn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 6 seconds that you're spent going in a straight line of 48 seconds around this racetrack. It's just so hard, I think, for these drivers, just trying to stay in the right frame of mind to make sure you don't just look away for 1 second and end up ending up in the barrier.
It's definitely, it's a very tight circuit, and that does add to the racing. But for me, I think this actually, it improves the quality as well. Certainly, it keeps everybody on their toes. And with it being quite tight, it really is, another kind of test. Sometimes it's nice having a big, open, wide track. Myself, I quite enjoyed, like, Cadwell, for example. I know it wasn't the favourite race, certainly, for the Formula Fords. But, the layout itself, I find, was quite demanding. And for me, it's a different kind of discipline, I guess. It's having a bit of a different variety here at the Weekend Warriors.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about this series, and we see it with all of the series here in the Weekend Warriors world, whether it be the Formula Vs yesterday, the Formula Fords that we're watching right now, or the Spec Racer Fords later on today. The wide variety of tracks that these drivers have had to deal with thus far, just running through the schedule: Navarra, Barber, Lime Rock, Cadwell Park, Hungaroring, Charlotte on the Roval, Road America 1 week ago, Brands Hatch Indy today, Okayama next week, Suzuka on the East course to be a bit more precise, Rudskogen, Zandvoort, and Tsukuba. It's just such a wide variety of racetracks, and I gotta say, as much as you do have racetracks like Road America 1 week ago, for instance, where these drivers have a bit more time to kind of just be by themselves and just, mash your foot onto that gas pedal and try and go as fast as you possibly can. You've also got a lot of racetracks like the one we're running at today, where you have to deal with the turns, you have to deal with just dealing with something at every single point in time. As much as you do have that sort of veracity when it comes to those racetracks, that's what makes a Weekend Warriors so special, is because you got that test of having such a wide variety of racetracks. I feel like the only way this series could be a bit more diverse if we were running on some dirt road courses as well.
Well, definitely, I would personally enjoy that. Tend to actually do better in the dirt than I do on the asphalt, but I gotta hand it to Tamara right now. She is absolutely on board with what's happening in this race, and both Stevie Ray and Bill Walker, they've taken to the pits, so certainly we've already seen a couple of pit stops here. I've not had any crash warnings yet, which for a race of this caliber is absolutely fantastic, but a couple of guys getting that early pit stop done and out of the way.
Already getting those pit stops dealt with, that may be the good call to do. You want to worry about where you come out when you decide to make that run to come down pit lane. But also at a racetrack like this where you're spending 40 seconds down pit lane, I think in terms of the ratio, so to speak, between time spent in the pits versus time spent in a single lap, this is one of those racetracks where you're spending pretty much just as much time down pit lane as you are going to be spending out there on a single lap. So when you make that call to come down pit lane is oh so important, especially considering the fact that if you run down into the pits, you're probably going to go a lap down in the process, as we have seen with the likes of Walker, Ray, and Lynn thus far in this race. So I feel like the pitch strategy, it's oh so important in these races, and we've seen races thus far this season get decided because of pitch strategy, but I think it's even more important here. And looking at that lap traffic debacle with Bill Walker kind of acting as a little bit of a rolling roadblock to Kevin Adrian and Jason Green. Looking at that pack, though, they're nearly 3 wide coming out of turn number 5 just a couple of moments ago. You can see some side-by-side fighting with DeGassis and Ditchburn hang through turn number 1. These drivers beginning to battle hard. Those lap traffic encounters clearly not helping some of these drivers who are trying to battle for positions.
Well, you say that, there's actually another battle going on in that, and it's Stevie Ray and Bill Walker. These guys have both been in the pits, and certainly both of them very gracious in trying to let these guys go by, but Stevie's absolutely sending it right now, doing what he can. Don't get me wrong, he pit incredibly early. I'm going to be curious to see if he goes and puts in his name for the Thompson Trophy, but certainly if he can stay on the back of that pack with Bill Walker, this could be very beneficial for them in the long-term result of the race.
I think even though the draft isn't too powerful in these Formula Fords, it may help you out when everything is said and done. We'll just have to wait and see how these drivers are going to tackle the rest of this race. About 15 minutes on the board, still a whole lot of racing action to deal with here from this race of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors, but the action has been intense thus far, and these drivers are really putting that on full display right now. This pack with Green, McConnell, Ditchburn, DeGassis, and Kevin Adrian, who's currently leading it at the moment. It is insane, the battling that's been going on between these drivers. Gotta say, a bit more reserved than we occasionally see from this series, for the simple sake that I feel like most of it, even though dirty air is not too big of a factor in these Formula Ford cars, I still feel like the thing with this racetrack is there's just not a whole lot of overtaking opportunities for these drivers. It's probably in your best interest to kind of follow the leader at certain points in time. So that could be the reason why this battle hasn't just burst into flames, so to speak. But these drivers still giving us a nice little fight right towards the tail end of the top 10 and really right at the back of the top 5 as Adrian running in 5th at the moment. 6.5 seconds away from Monty, who's still running in the 4th position. That front 4 fight has really broken up with Roseborough now extending that gap over himself and Barry in P2 to 1.7 seconds as Brad Cathcart, the Masters driver, comes in.
Well, definitely we're seeing a couple of people there making use of those pits, but let's, yeah, he's already in and out of the pits at this point. We'll keep an eye. This big pack here, I think this is where it's going to get call off a run.
Oh, yeah, this is going to look like a pretty good fight. Colorful indeed. I feel like some of these drivers... I think if these drivers have a little bit of frustration with each other, they may use some colorful language if they're feeling particularly displeased. But the colorful racing is certainly continuing. Gotta say, a colorful pack of race cars as well. Always nice to see the beautiful paint schemes that we have in the Weekend Warriors world with the various looking paint schemes and the various different colors going on as well. I was never good in art class, so I feel like my comment in that regard is a little bit in vogue. But nevertheless, these drivers still putting on a pretty colorful race as it stands at the moment, with a lot to keep our eyes on. The pit strategy game, that's going to be oh so important for these drivers. When to come down pit lane, when to stay out, when do you want to push, when do you want to try and be a bit more conservative. We'll just have to wait and see how these drivers are going to tackle the final 23-ish minutes of this 40-minute long race. 17 minutes on the board right now, and it's still Brandon Roseborough leading it over James Berry in P2. Daniel Tufts now stealing that fastest lap of the race at a 48.068. But I gotta say, lap time wise, most of this field is incredibly close. I feel like there's only a couple that are outside of that 48-second barrier. Really, the only driver that's outside that 48-second barriers, Michelle Lynn, is driven in some Formula Fords and some Formula V machinery in real life in the past. She's running in the 17th position at the moment, one of the first drivers to make that run to come down pit lane. However, in the process of Brad Cathcart coming into the pits, she actually jumped in front of Cathcart. So Michelle Lynn making up a spot at the moment, but these drivers still ticking away the laps. Very odd to say this. We are on lap 23, despite the fact we haven't even hit the 18-minute mark.
Well, definitely a lot of fun here happening, as I do apologise. I'm kind of flicking around a little bit there. Just touch, what's the word I'm looking for, Ron? Touchpad keyboard there. And you can see these guys still going at it. So Ditchburn, he's been after McConnell for a while. He's made his way through the field a little bit, but not really able to get past the Furball Racing machine. You see Jason Green, he's hot up the heels. Adrian currently ahead in that battle, but you know, I'm really interested who's going to be the first of this full pit. Like, currently we've got P5 down to about P9 is all up for debate. And I do wonder who's going to be the first. And it looks like Adrian's going in. No, not yet.
Hey, it looks like he's just going to take a shallow line through turn number 5. And I got to say, harkening my mind back to the last time I did a broadcast of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors at this very racetrack, it was a season opener for last season, which was an interesting time to say the very least. And during that race, a lot of drivers picked up some pit lane infractions, whether it be speeding penalties, trying to shave tenths of seconds off of these drivers' laps, or whether it be just unsafe pit entries and exits. So I feel like, despite the fact we've talked a lot about pit strategy, when these drivers...
Oh, Ron, I've just lost you, sir.
Oh,
there you go. You're
I
back.
think I...
You're back. Carry on. Oh, it sounds like my colleague is having a few technical issues. I'm having a few physical issues, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely full of cold right now, but I'm sure he's going to get that sorted in just a moment. But currently, Ditchburn still trying everything he can to try and get ahead of that Furball Racing machine. You can see Green is right behind Kevin Adrian, but he's got pressure of McConnell right behind as well. So it comes down to, do you want to fight for what's ahead or defend from what's behind? Lots of battles going on right now, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm still yet to see somebody make a pit, but it looks like Daniel Tufts and James Barry, they're still going up for it in the race lead, so interesting to see what's going to be happening there. Tomorrow, okay, you're telling me we're breaking up which part? As we keep an eye on this battle here with my apologies, Jason Green, Michael McConnell, Julian Ditchburn, and Alan DeGasis here. You can see Jason Green trying everything he can right now. Ditchburn looks like he's got even closer to the back of McConnell this time, but currently I do wonder if the draft of Green is what's keeping McConnell going right ahead. You can see here, he's trying everything he can as he heads down the start-finish, and that, as Tamara was saying, actually, if you go offline here, it pays a very heavy price, and if you don't get the, Tomorrow, I'm going to have to get you in here at this point. Brandon Roseborough has come into the pits. He's done his pit stop, so that currently puts him down into P11. We're going to see where he re-emerges. Right now, Tufts and Barry, they're out front, but still the biggest action happening right now is currently being led by Kevin Adrian. He has a whole field of cars behind him of Jason Green, Michael McConnell, Julian Ditchman, and Alan DeGassis. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can see here, we're going to get Ron back as soon as we can. Certainly, I think there's something happening on his end, or if not, I hope he's okay. We'll get it worked out, ladies and gentlemen. You know, these things happen. Actually, in some ways, I'm relieved it's not me this time, but you're going to have to deal with the very, actually legitimately nasally voice of Daniel Zippy Salmon here. You can see Ditchburn trying everything he can as they head through Druids. Not yet able to get it done, but applying plenty of pressure to the back of McConnell. And he's, well, I say that, McConnell is still very, very close to the back of Green. So again, who is going to be the first person to pit here? You can see Ditchburn trying everything he can, but not yet able to get that move done. The gas is about 4/10 of a second behind him. Is this going to be where he's going to be able to get it done? You can see here, again, Adrian stays out, Green stays out, McConnell stays out. How about the gases? The gases stays out as well. All of these guys running together, trying to stay in that pack. They pulled away from Jeff Jacobson, the Mountain Dew Mystery Machine. He's back in P9. And this is where, if you're going to make a pass anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's going to be through here. It's going to be turn 2 and 3. And you can see, definitely a little bit wide. There you go. No, clips the apex, using all of the track there. McConnell slightly offline there. I'm not quite sure what his plan is, but is this going to open the door for Ditchburn? You see he's definitely got a little bit of a better exit speed there, but has actually dropped back a little bit now. McConnell is currently on the attack to Green. A little bit of a wiggle there from JG2, but he keeps hold of it, and you can see just how tense it is. You definitely, any mistake here could cost you huge momentum as they head down the straight.
Okay, I think I may have gotten my technical issues resolved here. And what a perfect time to do it as Rosenborough comes down pit lane, currently running 11th as it stands at the moment, maybe making that 10th as he's closing up to the back of Paul Jackson here. Looking at this fight, though, there it is, side-by-side hang down the start-finish, not so straight away into turn number 1, and that's Roseborough getting a move done in the 55 car to slip his way up into the 10th position. Gotta say, looking at the time that he spent down pit lane, it was a pretty quick stop. 14 seconds in pit lane, 14 seconds in the pit box, I should say, 35.5 seconds down pit lane, so it looks like that was a pretty good run for him down into the pits. We'll have to see how it shakes out compared to these two of Tufts and Barry. Tufts at the fastest lap of the race at this point, the first driver to break below the 48-second barrier, my apologies, at a 47.998. Very odd saying sub 1 minute lap times on the broadcast. Still need to get into the swing of things in that regard, but these two, some of the fastest at this point in time. And I'm curious as to the call from Rosenborough as to whether or not he is going to be saving fuel between now and the end of this race, as we're going to take a look at a replay of an incident involving Bill Walker in the 319 car. You can see him heading down into turn number 1. May have been an off-track moment for the driver of the 319 car, and a simple spin, clip that paint through the corner, and watch out, Stevie, watch out. Oh, Stevie Ray having to take some terrifying evasive action to avoid the stopped car of Walker.
Well, it then says that Stevie Ray went off track, so I do wonder, we'll take a look on board from Stevie's point of view here. I do wonder if Stevie saw Bill and oh no, and absolutely sent it. Yeah, he did. 100%. He's like, no, risk versus reward. I'm going to go play in the sand with David Hasselhoff before I go and eat the backside of Bill Walker.
Yeah, I feel like a trip to the gravel trap is a lot more friendly than a trip to the infield care center. The trip back up into the top 10 is still going strong for Brandon Roseborough, as he's now slipped his way up into 9th, getting a move done on Jeff Jacobson a matter of a couple of moments ago. So well done for him, the driver of the 55, moving in front of the driver of the 40. Looking at these two, the driver of the 34 of Daniel Tufts chasing down the driver of the 100 car of Barry. He's been pretty fast thus far this season. I mean, he's a leader in the Spec 1 championship, for God's sake, so he's been very quick. But at this point in time, it's been a little while since he's grabbed a victory this season. So I think at this point in time, Barry, as much as he has a big points gap in that championship, he doesn't want to have to rely on that too much. Tufts, on the other hand, he hasn't been present all throughout this season. So occasionally, He does stick his nose into this series and has been very fast in his time in this series, but he's not really involved in that championship fight. Instead, he's going to be going for all that glory in the final 6 races of this season. So I have a feeling, looking at these front 2 drivers, just completely different mindsets in terms of how to tackle not just this race, but the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's good to see Daniel Tuffs up in the field as well. Certainly, you know, he's had a few battles recently, but James Barry, a tough man to beat. We're going to head back to this the 4, 5-way, 6-way battle going on, because again, none of them have yet pit.
Yeah, so I'm curious as to how these drivers are going to tackle that run to come down pit lane. It's always a real trouble spot for these drivers. And I mentioned a couple of moments ago before my microphone decided to have a panic attack on me that it's so important just trying to get a clean run down pit lane. Whether it be a pit lane speeding penalty or whether it be an unsafe exit penalty or an unsafe pit entry penalty for that matter, because we've seen all 3 of those happen with past Formula Ford Weekend Warriors races at this very racetrack, albeit on the Grand Prix layout and not the one we're running at today. It's still so important just to have a clean run and try to avoid any sort of penalties we've seen thus far this season, harkening my mind back to another race at a UK track of Cadwell Park.
Oh, here we go.
The run through pit lane and some penalties could hurt these drivers. Looking now, Green and Ditchburn the first 2 to pull off.
Well, that is interesting indeed. Ditchburn, I think, has had enough with trying to chase down McConnell. It's going to be a question now who's going to win out of the pits. Currently, we've got Jason Green. Let's keep a look, and he should have. Yep, there's Ditchburn right behind him. So who's going to move first? You can hear Green's revving up. He's keen. He's primed. He's ready to go. It's going to be a drag race. And yeah, Green absolutely nailed him out of the pits.
Yeah, there you can see Green extending that gap to himself and Ditchburn. Ditchburn now exiting out. Those 2, yeah, big gap between those 2. Now 3.5 seconds. Looking at the time that they spent down pit lane, it's about 3 seconds more for Ditchburn to Green. And in terms of their time spent down in the pits, it's actually just about the exact same in terms of 3 seconds separating Green and Ditchburn. Ditchburn spending more time down through pit lane and more time stopped in his box compared to Jason Green. Green, a series veteran here in the Weekend Warriors world, just nailing it in terms of that run to come down pit lane, as DeGas is now going to join them.
Well, I do want to. We're going to keep an eye on the pit lane times, ladies and gentlemen, because if I have a look, so Brandon Roseborough, he's one of the first. He was like 14.2 seconds. Jason Green, 13 seconds, and then Ditchburn was 15.8. So we're very, very curious indeed to see if Green has got enough fuel on board.
I'm curious as to how these drivers are going to tackle the end of this race. Some fuel saving may play a role in this. One driver has always been very much opposed to fuel saving is Jörg Mani, who's come into the pits from the 3rd position and the leading spot in the Masters category. Michael McConnell going to join him in the pits as well. So the driver of the 925 car and the 62 going to be the next 2 to come down pit lane. I'm curious if the top 3 are going to follow in suit in the next few moments, because Barry, Tuffs, and Adrian have yet to make that run to come down pit lane. Adrian is really the only holdout of that major 5-car fight that we saw not terribly long ago. He's the only one not to come into the pits, considering the likes of McConnell, Green, Ditchburn have come in. So those front 3 yet to make that run to come down into the pits. There's Green sweeping around the outside of McConnell, so that's going to be game, set, match between the 2 of them. Game is definitely on between those 2 drivers with about a smidge over 10 minutes left on the clock for this 40-minute long race. Is Kevin Adrian, the Mexican, now coming into the pits.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see where these guys re-emerge. We know they're all nose to tail as before the pit cycle started, and with 10 minutes left to go, it'll be very, very interesting indeed. Certainly, we've seen a lot of variety here in how long they've been in that pit box, so we'll see if Kevin Adrian, if he's quite light on the field. If anything, I'm expecting him to take a longer stop as he was leading that pack for the majority of the race. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's see how his fuel numbers are. You can see him still stopped in his box, Barry and Tuffs coming into the pits as well. Shows you how long it takes for these drivers to come down pit lane. Just going to note that Adrian spent 38.17 seconds down pit lane and 16.6 in his box. So that's going to hurt Adrian a lot as the likes of Green, McConnell, and Ditchburn just blow his metaphorical doors off. But now the fight is on between Tuffs and Barry, the 34 or the 100. Who is going to to prevail between these two drivers. And how's it going to shake out for Roseboro? He's going to be out there on the racetrack. Barry going to jump in front of Tufts. It's a game set match between the two of them. Where's Roseboro, though? Where is he? It's going to be a fight between those drivers. There's Roseboro. He's going to be in the midst of a Barry and Tufts sandwich. So Roseboro in the 55 car, he's now got a fight on his hands. That early pit call clearly not working.
Well, it really didn't work out for Daniel Tufts there because he's now got a little bit of traffic ahead of him, and that is Stevie Ray. But it's not just that, it's the gap ahead. He dropped back quite heavily. As you see, Stevie Ray getting a little bit of a tank slapper going. Tufts is full send. Stevie pulls off out of the way. Good sportsmanship by Stevie, but certainly a tense moment. You see Jorg Manny, everybody. I'm sorry, Stevie, you're getting absolutely snowballed right now, my friend. Everybody looking, and it's like Savara was saying, if you make one little mistake here, it is very, very quickly, capitalized on. What an absolutely exciting pit window strategy.
Yeah, that's the one thing with these Weekend Warriors races. A pit strategy is just so compelling to follow all throughout this race, because then it sets ourselves up for this fight between two heavy hitters in this round. Brandon Roseboro, the newcomer to this series in the 55 car, he has been compelling to follow all throughout this race. The 7.1K I-rating driver with an A-class license. He is fast. Barry, on the other hand, he's the championship leader. He's not only thinking about, hey, I need to stamp some sense into this newcomer and say, hey, I am the master. You aren't. Let me win. You can settle for second, buddy. Barry, at this point, he wants to also stake claim on that championship lead as well. Despite the fact he's got a good cushion, he doesn't want to fall back on that. Instead, he wants to try and grow that gap heading into the final 5 races of this season. But Roseboro's going to give him a fight. Side by side, heading down into turn number 1. Barry on that inside line. Roseboro on the outside. Looks like Roseboro's going back out of it. I have a feeling he's setting ourselves up for a move into turn 2. He is setting ourselves up for a move into turn 2. Side by side, they are inches separating those two drivers. Barry's still holding it onto the outside line. He's now got the inside line heading down into turn number 3. Barry going to withstand this challenge, but look at Daniel Tufts slideways heading out of turn number 3. Roseboro trying to fight back at Barry, and Roseboro going to get the move done right as I thought that fight between those two drivers was game, set, match. Roseboro coming back with a vengeance.
Well, certainly Tufts has been he's been handed a little bit of grace here, because that slow pit stop, I thought it was going to be over for him, but these guys fighting, he caught up 0.8 of a second in just a couple of corners. You can see Barry trying everything he can. He's going to try and do it under on Roseboro. Daniel Tufts right behind, and don't get me wrong, not far behind them is Jorg Manny. He's going to be hoping that these guys fight, as Tufts very, very close to the back of Barry there, applying plenty of pressure. We'll keep an eye. Manny now 0.9 of a second behind.
Yeah, Monty is slowly going to reel himself into this fight. Despite the fact that the Formula Fords aren't the most draft-heavy race cars in the world, he is slowly approaching that draft window, and I have a feeling that Monty is going to close himself right up to the back of these 3 cars at the front of this field. This race, these drivers that we're seeing at the front started at the front. They're running in the front 4 positions earlier on. They were so close. They were vacuum sealed together. Then a little bit of mid-race chicanery with some drivers making some interesting calls to come into the pits. Some worked, others didn't. Roseboro, he was leading this race, and he was one of the first to come into the pits. Didn't really work out too well for him. They were spread out, but they've closed back up yet again. And now Barry got to try and make it side by side with Roseboro, battling for the lead in this race with about 5 minutes left on the clock. Barry not successful in that attempt, heading down into turn number 2, and I feel like he's playing a dangerous game, because Daniel Tufts, he's got the fastest lap of the race, but he is eyeing victory. I think he has a really good shot to do it as well in that number 34 car.
Well, certainly, if you are leading the Masters right now with Jorg Manny, you got to weigh up, do you want to get involved in this fight or not? Certainly, it'd be a high risk, low reward, but I mean, these guys are here to race, and don't get me wrong, an outright podium is definitely going to feel much nicer than just a class win.
Oh yeah, a win. We've seen in the past. I've seen in the past, at least, Monty win these races overall. It's a somewhat rare occurrence when you see a non-Spec 1 driver win one of these races overall, but when it happens, it is absolutely glorious. And if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be a driver like Jorg Manny. Despite the fact he's in the Masters category, Manny has the ability to hold his own with these drivers. He's got a higher I rating than Barry and Tufts, and that's saying something, because James Barry and Daniel Tufts are some very talented race car drivers in iRacing. I've seen seen James Berry win some radical SR10 official championships on iRacing in the past. I've seen him won some league championships in the past. He's a reigning champion in this series. James Berry is quick, as is Daniel Tufts. Jörg Monty, he is a quick guy himself, and he's going to maybe get involved in this fight, just sticking his nose in a little bit, or maybe he's going to back out of it and just wait for all hell to break loose in front of him. Gotta say, last time by, setting the fastest lap of the race. Monty is confident in his chances, but we got another curveball thrown these drivers' ways. Looking a little bit farther up the road, we got some lap traffic to contend with as well, Zippy. So I think that may end up deciding how these drivers are going to finish in the final 4 minutes.
Absolutely, and you can see the lap traffic is going to be Paul Jackson. He's currently about 2.7 seconds up the road, so it'll be interesting to see if they catch him, certainly with only 3.5 minutes left to go. But Jörg Monty, he's been able to pull that gap down from about 9 tenths to about 5 tenths per second now. I do wonder if he's going to get involved, if he's going to have a battle. As we take a quick peek here, it looks like Jason Green and Michael McConnell are still going for it. Ditchburn, he's not that far behind. These guys competing with a little bit of lap traffic as well. You see Brad Cathcart there, just absolutely sends it. Ditchburn's like, I'm coming through. Canadians notoriously polite as drivers until you get to a drive-through, and in that case, it was a drive-through scenario. Full send, absolutely giving it everything he can. We see Stevie Ray and Bill Walker. These guys are still going at it as well. Oh, side-by-side, Ron. Uh-oh.
Yes, side by side indeed between these drivers coming out of turn number 2. They single file out. Stevie running in 12th, Bill Walker in 13th. Gotta say, Stevie putting together a pretty good drive. Currently slotted in 3rd of the Masters drivers, still out there on the racetrack at the moment. But Jörg Monty is still that Masters leader. Running in 4th overall, just got the fastest lap of the race last time by. But he is quick, and I think he's slowly reeling in those drivers. Doubly so, considering he's got the traffic to deal with. That, I believe, is Paul Jackson that they're going to hit first. I believe that'll be the only bout of traffic they have to deal with, as Jeff Jacobson well farther up the road is, well farther up the road, 7 seconds to be a bit more precise. So I don't think that Jeff Jacobson is going to play a role in deciding who's going to win this race. However, the encounter with Paul Jackson might end up deciding it. And at a racetrack like this as well, where these drivers don't have a whole lot of overtaking opportunities, they don't have any opportunities at all to take a rest, dealing with lap traffic, especially in these cars, open wheel, where if you make a small little bit of contact, you could end up in low Earth orbit and completely destroy any chance he had of doing well in these races. Paul Jackson, though, he's a sportsman. We may see him pull over to the side and let these drivers race, but it's still going to be a bit of a pain in the neck for Brandon Roseborough. Roseborough's going to catch him at a bad time coming out of turn number 1. Jackson going to pull over to the side of the road, try and let these drivers go, playing the sportsman role. He is, I gotta say, giving a little bit of a challenge to Monty, though. So Monty having a little bit of a hard time dealing with the lapped car of Paul Jackson. That's not going to help out the Swissman at all. He's going to be a little bit irked about that going on in the first few corners of this lap. But coming up slowly but surely to the 1 minute mark in this race, we've got about 2 more laps of racing action here from the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors at Brands Hatch. Roseborough's leading at Barry in 2nd, Tufts in 3rd. I feel like Monty's been taken out of this fight with that lap traffic encounter. Gonna take a look at a replay to see an incident involving McConnell.
So I just got a crash warning for both of these guys. It's between McConnell and Ditchburn. Let's see exactly what happens. Looks like Ditchburn's going to go up on the inside using all of the curb. And no, bit too close, and these guys make contact. And you see Kevin Adrian sneaks by there. And yeah, Ditchburn definitely taking a little bit of damage in that scenario. It was an ambitious pass for sure, but we'll take another look at it very, very shortly. Let's get back to this lead race for a minute.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. They're coming to the white flag this time by, I believe. It's going to be very close with only 20 seconds left on the clock. Barry's going to be pushing this issue, though, on the 55 of Roseborough. You can see it's a matter of inches, millimeters even, separating those two cars coming around turn number 5 for what's going to be the second to last time in this race. Monty coming into the pits. That's an interesting call from him. Not sure what's going on, but the white flag is in the air. 1 more lap to go here, and Barry going for the move into turn number 1 on Roseborough, side by side, down the hill. Who's going to win out? Who is going to lose out? Who's going to get shuffled out? Who's going to back their car into victory lane? Barry trying to get done down the inside into Druids. Is he going to get done? Is he going to be able to clear him? No, I don't believe he will. Roseborough now fighting back on the inside line through turn number 3. Barry getting hung out to dry. Barry's got 1 more opportunity to try and get it done, and it's going to be into turn number 5. Look at Daniel Tufts riding on board. He's our camera car. He's got a brilliant view of this fight, and if those 2 cars go off in a cloud of dust and steam, he he'd be the one taking the checkered flag, but it looks like they're not going to come to blows. Instead, Roseboro going to have a battle on his hands coming to the line. Barry has a lot of momentum coming out of the corner. Side by side across the line, Roseboro ends up winning at 15 thousandths of a second between Barry and Roseboro after over 40 minutes of racing action. I thought Roseboro had it coming out of the corner. Then I saw that Barry was slowly but surely reeling him in, but just didn't have the run coming out of the corner to be able to make that move stick. But well done to both of those drivers. They gave us one hell of a fight towards the end of this race and all throughout the race as well. But Brandon Roseboro, the driver of the 55, making his series debut, and what a way to do it.
What an absolutely fantastic finish there. I do wonder if Stevie's still going at it with no, definitely not. These guys have hit checkered. So that is the thing about the shorter tracks. So let's take another look here for this McConnell and Ditchburn instant run.
Yeah, let's have a look at this. Very clumsy incident heading down into the Druids hairpin of turn number 2. Riding on board with Ditchburn. He's a very opportunistic driver at times, but can be patient as well. This was one of those opportunistic moves. A little bit of contact being made. Gotta say, Ditchburn playing the sportsman role, slowing down. He did not want to take that position as a result of that. So Canadian kindness proving to prevail in that fight between those two, and that crash between those two hang down into turn number 2. That's not really too much of a unexpected incident to have as well, because turn 2, it's such an inviting opportunity for these drivers to try and get an overtake done, and just sometimes it ends up well, sometimes it doesn't. That case ended up being one of those times where it just didn't pan out.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it was, it definitely wasn't intentional. Just, he went, he did everything he could. I'd honestly flag that as a racing incident. Honestly, I expected to see that happen on more occasions. So that is sheer, credit, what's the word I'm looking for on, recognition, I guess, for, just how talented the drivers here are at the Weekend Warriors. And certainly as well, we have the Formula Vs, we have the Formula Fords, and we also have the SRS that you guys are going to get to join in and watch very, very shortly. About 2 hours time, but don't hold me to it, because time zones and stuff like that, and also, zippy math, not always the best. But if you're wondering why I'm keeping an eye on Jason Green, ladies and gentlemen, well, this gentleman has form for certain gymnastics when it comes to automotive endeavors, and thankfully just in the iRacing world. So I'm going to see if I can keep an eye and see if he absolutely sends it. Where there's a jump run?
Oh, no, what sort of demon? I feel like I remember having a chat with him at the end of the Formula V Weekend Warriors race yesterday about him doing some practice time to try and find a jump. I think he's going to go for it. I feel like it's going to come out of turn number 3 because he got that sort of slanted hill as the runoff area, and he may try and do something like that here. Did he go for it, though, is the real question. I think he may not have found a jump around here. And try and find a replay to see what sort of demons these drivers can unleash. Gotta say one thing as well, the Weekend Warriors world. It's a fantastic group to be a part of, mainly because you have some stuff like this that occasionally peeks its head out, and it is always absolutely hysterical. And here it is. It wasn't to turn number 3, and there we go. Look at that. What in the world am I just saying? What in the world am I witnessing? Who is that, tumble rolling? It looked...
We can watch that again.
In the world. Yeah, thank you very much, Zippy. I feel like I'll have to take a look at this several times over. Was that Russ Telker, I think?
I think
just
so.
Tumbling like a madman. I feel like, yeah, you can see there's great. And now it was actually getting hit by multiple cars as he was tumbling. And I genuinely do not know what language I slipped into a couple of moments ago. I'm genuinely curious as to what sort of linguistic quality that was, but nevertheless, that was absolute insanity. I'm about 80% sure that my iRacing may have just crashed on me.
Yeah, I think mine did too. Oh, there we go. Oh,
yeah.
No.
Oh, there we go. Actually, it was just staring off into the blank abyss that is underneath Brands Hatch in the UK. A brilliant racetrack and put on a brilliant race. And here are those results. Brandon Roseboro going to win it when everything is said and done in the 55 car. He wins at only 15 thousandths of a second to himself and James Berry after over 40 minutes of racing action. Incredible between those two drivers. Daniel Tuff's going to finish in 3rd. Jörg Mani going to pick up the Masters win in 4th, doing so with 2 pit stops as well. So, hey, Crow, where credit's due to Jörg, the fact he was able to keep that thing going. Not sure why he had to come into the pits, maybe for a quick splash and dash, but either way, he's going to finish this race in 4th. Jason Green, going to finish in 5th, rounding out your overall top 5. They have Kevin Adrian, Michael McConnell, Julian Ditchburn, Alan DeGassis, and Jeff Jacobson going to round out your top 10. And looking through the rest of the drivers that we have classified, it's Paul Jackson in 11th. Bill Walker, actually, I should note that Paul Jackson picks up the Spec 2 win in the process. Bill Walker finishes right behind on track and right behind in the Spec 2 category, finishing in 12th. Stevie Ray finishes in 13th. Gary Walbald finishes in P14. Russell Telker, who steals our hearts with a just amazing display of Formula Ford aerial acrobatics. It was so intense, in fact, that I think I started speaking in tongues. He finishes this race in 15th. Brad Cathcart going to finish in P16. Daniel Verone finishes in 17th. Michelle Lynn finishing this race in 18th, and the last few drivers that I think we have classified are ones that ran into some difficulties and didn't even take the start. That being Zachary Rivard, a Formula Ford driver in real life. He finishes this race in 19th, my apologies, after not taking the start, I believe. Chris Murakami finishes right behind in 20th, and Kurt Nunez in 21st, rounding out the drivers that are classified, all of them 50 laps down, not taking the start. And those are our results, but Zippy, you've got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area, so who would you like to have a chat with?
Well, I'll tell you what, you take Brandon Roseborough first, sir, because I want to grab Jorg in just a moment.
Alrighty, fair enough. We will bring in Brandon, our race winner here in what we believe is his series debut, is now joining us in the commentary booth. And now, Brandon, that was a brilliant show from you, my friend. Grabbed the pole, won the race, but there was a whole lot of drama in between then and the checkered flag. So talk us through a very hectic day here at Brands Hatch.
Indeed, yeah, thanks, guys. That was a ton of fun. Shout out to everybody involved in that. James, Jorg. Yeah, it was fantastic. I had nothing but fun. Shout out to all.
Yeah, it looked like a whole lot of fun there, man. The other professional broadcaster not realizing that he muted his microphone for a couple of moments there. My apologies there, folks. But that race looked absolutely hectic. And a big thing as well when it came to that race that we noted a lot was the pitch strategies that a lot of you drivers were trying to implement between you, Barry and Tufts, and Monty. All of y'all came down pit lane at pretty much entirely different times. So was it hard just trying to stay with your pitch strategy and think, hey, I've got this stuff planned out, this is what I'm going to do now, and this is how it's going to track out throughout the rest of this race? Was it just difficult trying to keep that in sight and try and keep a calm head throughout this race?
I'd say so, yeah. At one point, I was kind of worried that I might have made the wrong call because I got caught up in traffic. Because usually, like, the strategy is you just stay out as long as you possibly can because the car is usually faster when you're on lower fuel. So I was a little bit worried when I had to, like, work my way through a little bit of traffic and I kept getting slowed down, but it worked out in the end.
Well, it did work out for you for sure, winning a race which was incredibly hectic from our perspective in the commentary booth. I'm sure it was for you as well, behind the wheel. And now, I don't believe I have ever seen you run in this series in the past. So was this your series debut? And if it was, what do you think of it?
So, not quite my series debut. I did a couple of races, I think it was last season or 2 seasons ago. But, yeah, I haven't done too many, but still, fantastic. I always loved racing this car, and I can always expect a clean race with a lot of the people in this series. So, shout out to all of them.
And shout out to you, man, for a very strong drive from this race. And it's only 5 more races left to go here. So I'm going to ask you if you are going to be out on track for the rest of the season. The next race that you're going to have to deal with is going to be at Okayama in 1 week's time. So if you are going to be with us, what do you think that race is going to be in a week's time?
Okayama's a good track. It's a free track, so I expect a lot more cars and a lot more competition as well. So I'm sure that it's going to be a great race.
Well, this series always has a fantastic ability to put on some fantastic shows, and I think you and the rest of the drivers running inside the top 4 certainly gave us one here today, and we thank you for that, and I'll give you the opportunity to give anyone any thanks or shout-outs that you may want to give out before we let you go and celebrate this win.
Definitely. Shout out to you guys for the broadcast, and shout out to Stevie for putting together such an amazing.
Alrighty, there you go, Brandon Roseberg. Well done on that result. Brandon Roseborough, my apologies. I will get that pronunciation right at some point between now and the end of this broadcast. Congratulations on the win, man. Excited to see you back out on the racetrack, wherever it is, in the not-too-distant future, man. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
And that right there was Brandon Roseborough, the winner in the Spec 1 category. And Zippy, I'll let you have the floor with Jorg Monty, our Masters winner.
Oh, yeah, let me just get him dragged in here, Ron. Thank you, Ron. Much appreciated. Jorg, I gotta say, it's great to see you back. Certainly, it's been a rough couple of weeks for you, and I sympathise, with what's been going on. But it's great to see you back. Certainly, you started strong for sure. Started in P2, if my memory serves me correctly. And tell us a little bit about how this race went for you.
It was actually pretty intense, I think, and thank you for your kind words before. Yeah, it was quite intense, but I saw immediately I have to keep back a bit because Brandon and James are quite quicker, and I'm definitely going to stay off of Daniel. I'm not getting any closer to him, so I let him pause, and I just tried to to hook myself on the back of them. It actually worked quite well, but as usual, the pit stop came in between. but it was really intense. But I had a good pace. I think I had a good rhythm. I think I did not make too many mistakes. I think I had only 3 inks, what is actually quite good on this track. And of course, it was a lot of fun. Not many overtakes, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, it certainly is a very demanding circuit in its own right. Don't get me wrong. It's not like an incredibly tight circuit, but certainly, if you make any small mistake, it can you pay for it very, very heavily, and you need to carry as much momentum as possible. But Jorg, we're going to be heading next to Road Atlanta, I believe, in the Spec Racer Fords. Tell us a little bit. Are you going to be in that race, and if so, how do you feel about that?
It's always mixed feelings on this track. Sometimes it goes good, and other times it goes really bad. So I hope it's going to go good. But the feelings are actually positive. It's a good track, actually. I don't even know which version it is, short version or long version.
Full one.
I have no clue.
I think it's the full one.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a mixed feeling on Road Atlanta, but I can have some practice now with Spec Ford and Road Atlanta. So getting back into the feeling now.
Well, Jorg, it's certainly one of the track car combos I know I would like to be doing, so please represent me very well. Certainly, if you have a podium, I will take part of the honour on that, and if you go and bin it, I will take 100% of the honour on that. But ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Jorg Manny. Great to see you back, and that is your Masters winner for today. Thank you very much, Jorg.
Thanks a lot, guys, and thanks again for the great broadcasts and comments. They're really great, and thank you, Zippy, again for your messages that you sent me.
No worries, Jorg. Happy to look after you, sir. But before we do let you go, though, tell us a little bit about how it feels to be the only winner of the Thompson Trophy today.
Great feeling. Great feeling in a mixed way, of course, but one has to take it. One has to take it. A trophy is a trophy.
This is definitely very true. And we're just reading anybody who's not seen the YouTube chat. So Jorg, he just needed 0.6 more litres. That's how close it was, ladies and gentlemen. So while he is the only winner of the Thompson Trophy today, he does at least do it on a finite margin. Congratulations, Jorg.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. And have a good next race now.
You too, Jorg. Remember, we got that deal. If you podium, it's 100% me.
Okay, I give it to you then.
All right.
Okay. Till later, guys.
See you later. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jorg Manny, your Masters winner. Great to see him back and in the booth. But Ron, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we got coming up here at SMB?
Oh yeah, we have got a whole lot of fantastic racing to keep our eyes out for. Coming up later on today, in fact, we've got action from the Spec Racer Fords running at Road Atlanta. I remember all the way back in early 2023, the first ever Weekend Warriors broadcast I ever did with our SMB colleague and old friend, Mr. Tim Cox, on the call for that. It was the 3rd or 4th broadcast I ever did, and have it be known that I had no idea what I was doing at that point in time. So that combination has a little bit of a soft spot. You'll be able to catch Zippy and Randall McGrew on the call for that broadcast coming up in the not too distant future. Coming up this Wednesday, we've got some action with round 1 for Group 2 of the Ray Esports Club Racing League. 70 minutes of GT4 action. Gonna be coming at you thick and fast at Sebring. That'll be some pretty good shows off the back of a very intriguing opening race of that brand new new series. And then next weekend, we've got some more Weekend Warriors action for the 5th to last race of the season for all of the classes. The Formula V is going to be running at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. The Formula Ford is going to be running at Okayama, and the Spec Racer Ford is going to be making a trip out into the Italian countryside at Mugello. That's all the stuff to look forward to here at SMB. Gives you more of a reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well so you never miss any of the racing action. But Zippy, I'll let you handle the stuff over on Pit Road Productions.
So Pit Road Productions is our sister channel, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the one I had before I came over at SMB, and it is the home of the BIS Britannia Esports F1600 Championship and the BIS Radical Canada Cup. And both of those, ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted to have a chance at winning a drive in a real race car, that is the way to do it, ladies and gentlemen. So real F1600s up here in Canada and a real Radical. Certainly a lot of people got to do that before. Zach Buchanan and Ozzy Milwayne, they got to drive a real one round. I think it's Toronto Motorsport Park, not Motorsport. So certainly an interesting series if you're looking for something on a Wednesday night there. But Ron, why don't you give us a couple of closing thoughts and we'll wrap the show up and get ready for the Spec Racer Fords.
Well, I think closing thoughts from this race, the fantastic classic action that we usually expect from the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors, some strategy involved, some close quarters racing, occasionally some fisticuffs can break out, but outside of that, the racing is always absolutely fantastic. I gotta say, coming up later on today, we have got a banger of a race to look forward to with the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. The strength of field at this point, according to series admin Stevie Ray, with some nice investigative journalism that he is doing on our behalf, it's currently at about 3.3 thousand iRating. So
Ouch.
That is going to be a battle of titans coming up later on today. That is going to be a brilliant show here at SMB coming up in about an hour's time. Again, that gives you more reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. And the next time you're going to be seeing this series is going to be in 1 week's time at Okayama. That's going to be a pretty good race at that classic racetrack. The last time the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors ran at that racetrack, I believe it was a couple of seasons ago for the runoffs, and that track was soaking wet. So that is going to be a really compelling show in about 1 week's time. And the usual action from the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. Brands Hatch was absolutely fantastic. The Spec Racer Fords are going to be awesome as well, so stay tuned for that. But I think for this broadcast here of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors at Brands Hatch, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, and Zippy working with me, working comps and the cams with me on today's broadcast, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and now stay tuned for Randall McGrew on the Spec Racer Fords.
I see a Budweiser. Go ahead and hold it up.
Yes. There's
that was
our
the biggest clue.
Yes, right
Doing
there.
it for Dale.
Man, it's so many gimmicks, right? I feel like they're making it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, a lot of people, you get polarizing opinions on DRS.
I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but sometimes the effort, it's all about the boys. You know, like, hey, you know, life sucks sometimes, and you need the boys.
iRacing kind of always has a tendency to kind of buff
Yes.
the new cars just a little bit. I'm not going to go on record saying it's because they want people to spend money on their platform and buy all the new content.
Confirmed.
But
Yes.
but
We are live for the first time on slow motion broadcasting with the FF Weekend Warriors. We're at Sebring this weekend. It's going to be a blast. I saw a little bit of rain here in the practice session, but we'll get to that here in 1 second. My name is Adam Thompson. I'm joined in the booth by Randall McGrew.
With these three going right at it, we see you're getting really, really squirrely. There,
Oh, no!
Some contact. Oh no! Jurg and Antonio, the two Masters leaders, both with issues and now dropping down the order.
There's a dicing through the curbs. Our lead two. As that's Instaman just slossing it up the inside through McIntyre there. Beautifully done by the Icelandic driver as there's a big incident happened behind somewhere. Gonzaga losing a lot of places back.
Almost touching at that point. They're around there, heading into the closing stages of the track. Not quite there yet. Heading through what I'm calling the horseshoe, but let's not get into my drawing skills at this point. Nothing but clear track ahead of them at this point, so no one should be able to interfere in that battle. Side by side, nearly had contact there. That's going to put Kabanka on the inside for this next hairpin. This could be what decides it, and he's gone right on the outside, actually trying to cover off the car. I do wonder if Barry is going to be close enough to potentially slipstream. They've got 2 corners left to go. This is penultimate one now. Barry right up close, 0.3 of a second. I'm not sure it's going to be close enough, 0.2 of a second. He's got to keep his foot on that loud pedal. Catches a little bit of a curve, but has Kabanka done it? Barry going to the inside, and Kabanka gets it.